Hey guys, Mishka here. Alright, this video is going to be about interrupting bad guys. How do you do it? So when you're out fighting bosses and doing adventuring, every now and then you'll come across an enemy and it's going to have a little bar above its head that says interrupt. It's going to be a pink bar. The bad guy is usually doing something when that happens. Either casting a cure spell, healing themselves. In the case of like the Minotaur boss, enraging themselves. How do you deal with that? Well, it depends on what class you're playing. Every class has the ability to interrupt, as long as you do it right. So we're going to start off with the best class for interrupts, the Bard. The Bard is, in my opinion, the epitome of interrupting, mostly because of this guy right here, the Instrument of Justice. So we'll go ahead and build up 2 instruments, and we'll talk about it as we get there. So the Bard has the potential to do 5, 6, I think 7 interrupts at once, which is unparalleled. And the way they can do that is, one, your mallet can be used as an interrupt. So I can throw the mallet, and that will act as an interrupt. It'll do a slight amount of damage. It'll also interrupt. Your Instrument of Justice. I really hope this works in the house. It doesn't. Instrument of Justice shoots out 5 bolts at once. Each of those counts as an interrupt. And Instrument of Harm will shoot out a bolt, and that counts as an interrupt as well. They are a little hard to aim. I guess I can't really show you in here. Oh well. But yeah, you can get the 5, the 6, and the 7 from throwing a mallet. Unfortunately, if you throw both mallets, it only counts one of them. I don't know why, but that's Bard. So yeah, mallet throws, Instrument of Harm, and Justice crescendos. For Ranger, you have 2 interrupts. The first one is your charged shot, which I'm waiting for this icon right here. That's the charged shot. When you do a charged shot, that will interrupt an enemy. Be very careful about this. Ranger kind of gets shafted in the interrupt department because that charge shot is a huge portion of your damage, right? Usually you use it with a piercing arrow, you charge it, and it deals a lot of damage. If you interrupt an enemy doing a link shield with that, it will apply the damage first and then the interrupt. And with link shield, they don't take damage when they're link shielding, which means you deal no damage whatsoever, but you interrupt them. So be careful with that. Usually if it's against a link shielded enemy, you can also use your Ranger Trap. The Ranger Trap is an interrupt. You throw it, it'll interrupt the bad guy. Yeah. Otherwise, just let somebody else deal with the interrupts because there's no use getting off rotation and sacrificing a large portion of your damage to interrupt one thing when you have a group of other people to interrupt for you. Musketeer, you've got 2 interrupt. Well, this is an awkward bug when I've got 2 weapons equipped. Let's try to fix that. There we go. Alright, Musketeer, you've got 2 ways of interrupting. You have your Gravity Orb, which will briefly stun and slow enemies. That's an interrupt. Or you can charge shot, like that. Why is that in my left hand? This game is flawless. Right, next up, Paladin. Why is this in my left hand? I'm not left-handed. There we go. Paladin has great interrupt capabilities, as long as you time it right. The way you interrupt as a Paladin is you throw your hammer when it has charges. So charge your hammer, toss it. As long as it's in the air, it'll interrupt any enemy it hits. So this is great against like Minotaur. If you know he's about to do his little enrage for the interrupt, hold up on your pips. As soon as he starts, you just go blah, 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 and it uses all of those, and it yeah, it'll get the interrupt. I think I can show you right over here. If I come up and I just go blah, 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 see, it does all that damage. Right? You can just, yeah, that's great. So that's Paladin. Mage, you've got 2 spells that will interrupt. You have pushback. There we go. And I'm on an index and I haven't cast the spell yet, so forgive me. Pushback 2. Pushback 2 is an AoE, so I'm here. I cast it. You can see I hit both enemies. It'll interrupt everybody within an AoE of me. Warrior kind of gets shafted. Their only interrupt is the shield bash. So you pull your trigger with the shield hand and you bash that shield bash, and now I have to wait for that interrupt again. So yeah, Warrior gets great aggro and self-healing, but their interrupt is awful. Shaman. Uh, Shaman is one of those weird ones where you have to actually equip something in order to get your interrupt. I think, yeah, everything else has an interrupt kind of built in to their class. With Shaman, you have to be using your stun orb. If you don't have your stun orb equipped, you cannot interrupt. But the stun orb, yeah, does that slight stun. That is your way of interrupting as a Shaman. And it comes up on like what, 3-second cooldown, 3 or 4 seconds like that. So it's not terrible. But yeah, last class is Scoundrel. Scoundrel, same thing as the Ranger or Musketeer. It's a charge shot. 1, 2, 3. That's an interrupt. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Or if you've got one basket, you can do 4 for an interrupt. As of this moment, don't use one basket. I'm not entirely sure what the new meta is going to be, but right now we're still going with break shot. This was just because I was testing things. Yeah, getting a charge shot for a Scoundrel will interrupt. Unlike Ranger, this will apply the interrupt first and then the damage, so you can still hit Link Shielders without any fear of losing out on damage. Yeah, that's how you interrupt with each class. Again, currently Ranger is kind of on the low priority for interrupts because it takes a lot of their damage, or you need to be up close to throw the Ranger trap. If you've got a Bard, they are superior at interrupts as long as they have Justice up. Paladins can usually get interrupts very well. A good mage should know pushback and know the rotations of enemies, be on standby for that. Shamans are always using stun totem, so that's good. You really shouldn't have an issue with interrupts, but that is that. That's how you interrupt with each class. If you see the interrupt bar, unless you're like in a well cohesive group, I wouldn't really recommend hoping that somebody else takes care of it. Like if you're in a dungeon queue and you see an interrupt bar, go ahead and take care of it. I play as a ranger nowadays, and even though that's like a huge portion of my rotation is getting that charge piercing arrow, if I see a link shield, I'm going to go ahead and interrupt because that's a group I'm not familiar with. I don't know who's going to do the interrupts. You should be under the same assumption. If you're in a group and you don't know the people, go ahead and take care of those interrupts on your own. So that's it for now. A rather short one, but it's a great request from OrbusVR Tips. If you guys have any more suggestions or questions, let me know. Until then, got caught on my chair with the cord. Until then, as always, happy hunting.